Hello everyone, in today's video we will be correcting your worksheets from throughout the week. So let's get to that immediately. We will begin with worksheet number 1. So this one wants us to create angles that are 60 degrees here, 130 degrees here, and 90 degrees here. So let's get a protractor. And if you do not have a protractor at home, you can print one out. Just use a paper one. So I'm going to make one line that is going to start from here and go this way. And then we want the second line to be at the 60-degree mark. So think about it like this. We want it to be 60 degrees, right? So that means that if we started from here and we kept going, we would go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 right there. So there's our first angle. Right, let's move on. Next one says 130 degrees. So I'm going to make one line like this again, right there. And then the second one is going to start from here. And then we need it to get to 130. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130. Now, of course, you can't actually do this with pencil and paper. So what you would do with pencil and paper is you would need to make a dot. Place the protractor on that dot. Oh, look at that. Then make another dot at the line that says 0, so right here. And then you need to go to the line that says 130. Be careful to go to the correct one. Since you are starting from here, you need to follow a set of numbers that has a 0 here. So the inner set of numbers. So here's our 130. Don't go to this one. This is on the outside set of numbers that you would have had to start from here to get to this. Since you're starting from here, you're using the inner set of numbers. So you need to put another dot there. And then you would need to make a line here and a line here. And there's your 130-degree angle. All right. Next up, we need a 90-degree angle. So again, let's use our protractor. So I'm going to make a dot, and then I'm going to bring my protractor in. And then a dot here and a dot here. Take away the protractor and connect. Connect the two dots with the one that was at the center. And there's your 90-degree angle. All right, let's move on. Next, we have an exercise that focuses on theory. So basically, this is the first part is asking how many degrees a straight angle is, and the answer to that is 180, whereas the right angle is 90 degrees. An acute angle is less than 90 degrees, so Greek whereas an obtuse angle is more than 90 degrees, so περισσότερο 90 meters. I can't make, on my computer, I can't make this little mark dot here. So I write the whole word meters. Next up. Okay, so this is an interesting piece of information about two angles that when added together make 90 degrees. When two angles add up to 90 degrees, they are called, and I'm going to write this in both English and Greek. So in English, they're called complementary, whereas in Greek, they're called symplyromatikes. And I'm going to make that a little smaller so it fits. If they add up to 180 degrees, they are called supplementary. In English, and in Greek, they are called paraplyromatikes. All right. Next up. So here we want to find the supplementary and the complementary angles for each of these. So for this one, let's just actually copy these. Going down here. For this one, in order for it to add up to 90, we have to add 40 to it. And for it to add to 180, well, what do we have to add to 50 to get 180? That would be 130. Next up, we have 75. So to get to 90 from 75, we would need to add 15. And to get to 180, we would need to add 105. To get to 90 from 7, we would need to add 83. But to get to 180, we would need to add 173. Well, here, we can't really make 90 degrees because it's already more. It's 102. So we're just going to fill in the supplementary. We would need to add 78 degrees. All right. So here we're going in for the triangles. So an isosceles triangle has two equal sides. In Greek, I would write δύο ίσες πλευρές. Next, an equilateral triangle has all sides equal, so όλες τις πλευρές ίσες. And the scalene has no equal sides. Καμία πλευρά ίση. So here we want to define them based on their angles. We see here that we have only acute angles. So that would make this an acute triangle, or in Greek, octagonio. Here we see we have one obtuse angle. So we have an obtuse triangle, or in Greek, ambligonio. Here we have again three acute sides, so oxygonio. And here we have one right angle, so orthogonio. Right. This is the entire worksheet. Pause if you need to check. keep going. Next up, the sum of the angles of a triangle, as we said, is 180 degrees, and the sum of the angles of a four-sided shape are 360 degrees. Here we want to make one angle that is 40 degrees and one that is 60. So let's get our protractor again. And here we go. Again, I will make one point here, one point here, and then one point at the 40-degree line, which is right here. And I will unite the three. And then we want a we want a 60-degree angle. So I'm going to make a point here, here, and then a point at the 60-degree line, which I cannot see. So let's zoom in a little bit right there. And then I will unite the two on the outside with the one in the center. All right. Now it wants us to make an equilateral triangle that has a side of 2.5 centimeters. So we're also going to need a ruler. Now, this ruler is not real, so it might come out different for you. Actually, let's make it real. Let's put it right there. There we go. Now we have real dimensions. So now my ruler has true dimensions. So this is actually what your triangle should look like. So we want this equilateral triangle to have sides of 2.5 centimeters. So that means each side needs to be this big. Okay. Now the problem is, how do we make the next side? Well, we should remember that equilateral triangles have all their sides being 60 degrees. So we need to make our next side be 60 degrees from the first one. So it needs to head this way. So let's hide the protractor. Let's take our ruler. Turn it so that it touches the red dot. And what do you know? It is exactly at 2.5 centimeters. So now we're going to make a line from here to here. And then just remove the ruler and connect the last two. And there you have it, an equilateral triangle. This is what it should actually look like. So here we want to make a triangle that has a side of 3 centimeters. And then we want the angles that are on it to be 50 degrees and 70 degrees. So let's do that. All right. And we don't know how long they're going to be. We just know that one needs to be 50 degrees and the other needs to be 70 degrees. So let's see our protractor again. Let's bring it down here. Whoa. No. Protractor. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to make the first one be at 50 degrees. Let's move in a little closer. So right there. And then, well, let's make that first line. That first line is going to go this way. And then we're going to take the protractor and make it so that the other line forms 70 degrees. So let's see. 70 degrees would be right here. So right here. So I'm going to make a line that goes from here to here, but then continues until it can meet this line. So, okay. Let's see what our shape should look like. Okay. We're going to combine all of them. And we will also erase the two red dots. And we will also remove the protractor and the ruler, and we will also erase this up here. Actually, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. There we go. This is what our triangle should look like. Now maybe you chose the opposite side, so maybe instead of like this, maybe it looks like this. That's the same thing. It really doesn't matter. As long as it looks something like this, you've done pretty well. Let's move on to the next exercise. But before we do, we are going to take our protractor and our ruler with us because I have a feeling we're going to need them. And we can just hide them. So, again, this is the exercise. Pause the video if you need to check the answers. Okay, let's get started. So here we are being given two of the three angles of a triangle, and we need to find the third one. All right, we can do this with math. We know that the angles all need to add up to 180 degrees. So first let's find the angles, and then we're going to define the triangle. So 60 plus 60 makes 120. And how much do I need to get from 120 to 180? I need another 60. Here we have 40 and 50, so which makes 90. And to get from 90 to 180, I need another 90. Here we have 130, so 130 plus how much to get to 180? We need another 50. All right. Here we have a triangle that has all three of its sides being 60 degrees, meaning that they are all going to be acute. So it's going to be an acute triangle. So in Greek, oxygonio. But we also know that, if we remember correctly, equilateral triangles are the ones who have all their angles being 60 degrees. So we also know that it is equilateral, isopleural. Next up, we have a triangle here that has a 90-degree angle, a right angle. So we're going to have orthogonio trigono. can't really tell anything about its sides. Here we have an angle that has one obtuse angle, so that means we have an obligonio. Now we are being told 3 of the 4 sides of a 4-sided shape. And if you remember, the sum of the 4 angles of the shape need to make 360 degrees. So here we have 80 and 100 and 120, which all of that together makes 300. So we need another 60 to get to 360. Here we have 65 and 110 and 100, which makes 275. So we need another 85, right? Yes, perfect. Here we have 90 and 125 and 85. 125 and 85 make 210, plus 90 make 300. So we need another 60 to get to 360. Here we have 65 and 105 and 85. 105 and 85 make 190, plus 65 make 255. So to get from 255 to 360, I need another 105. Next up, here we know that the angle created by the red sides is 30 degrees. Sorry, from B to A to C. So this right here, it's 30 degrees, right? And then we also know that from C to A to D, it's another 70 degrees. And it's asking us to find the red angle. So that's going to be the sum of these two angles. So that's 30 plus 70, which makes 100. Here we know that x to O to y is 46 degrees. So here, this part is 46. And then x to O to z is 70. And it is asking us to find y to O to z. So this red angle. That's going to be the difference between the two. So 70 minus 46, which is equal to 24. So there's that entire exercise. There you go. You can check, you can stop the video and check it if you want to. Okay, so here, we're going to need the protractor again. All right, so let's measure. I place my protractor at the point where the lines intersect, so right there. And we can see we go from 0, so we start from here. So we follow the inner set of numbers to 110. So this one is 110. Next up, come on. There we go. Follow the inner set of numbers again. So from 0, this seems to go to about 45. So 45 degrees. You can see that now I'm starting on this side. So now I need to follow the outer set of numbers. So from 0, we go to 20. So this angle is 20 degrees. And now, again, we need to follow the outside. It's a little bit off. There we go. All right, so this one goes from, again, we're starting on this side, so we need to follow the outer set of numbers. Go from 0 to 140. So this one is 140. Next up, All right, I haven't placed this correct. There we go. Okay, so now we are starting on this side. And so we need to follow the inner set of numbers, and it goes halfway between 70 and 80. So I'm going to say 75. Here we're starting on this side, so we're going to follow the outer set of numbers, and we get to 150. So this angle is 150 degrees. So there we go. Those are our answers. Pause the video if you need to check. All right, so here we are blending equations and angles. So we need to find x in each of these. So let's solve the equations now. What needs to happen here is that the sum of the angles need to make 180 degrees because this is a straight line. So 2x plus 5 plus 65 needs to make 180 degrees. So let's write that down. 2x plus 5 plus 65 needs to be equal to 180 degrees. 5 plus 65 is going to give me 70. If I subtract 70 from both sides, I get 2x needs to be equal to 180 minus 70, which is 110. Then I divide both sides by 2. So I get that x is equal to 55. So that's our x. Next up, 136 plus 4x plus 12 needs to be equal to 180. I add 136 plus 12, so I get 4x plus 148 needs to be equal to 180. I subtract 148 from both sides, and I get that 4x is equal to 32. I divide both sides by 4, and I get that x is equal to 8. Next up, 45 plus 5x plus 25 needs to be equal to 180. I'm going to add 45 and 25, so I'm going to get that 5x plus 70 is equal to 180. So 5x needs to be equal to 110. I subtracted 70 from both sides just now. I divide both sides by 5, and I get that x is equal to 22. Because 110 divided by 5 is 22. Next up, we have that 7x minus 8 plus 76 must be equal to 180. Okay, so here I can switch these two up. I can bring this here with no problem. So I can do 76 minus 8 first. So I'm going to have 7x plus 64 needs to be equal to 180. Sorry, 64. Oh, my mistake. 68. Then I subtract 68 from both sides, and I get 112. I divide both sides by 7, and I get that x is equal to 16. Next up, 3x minus 17 plus 122 needs to be equal to 180. And here, this is the same case as before, where I can just swap this with this. But if you don't want to do that, or if you find it a little too confusing, you can still do this by saying, okay, well, first I'm going to subtract 122 from both sides. So what would happen if you did that would be 3x minus 17 needs to be equal to, since I subtracted 122, I would get 58. And then to get rid of this minus 17, I would add 17 to both sides. So I'd have that 3x needs to be equal to 75. So remember what we got to here. And if I finish this, if I divide both sides by 3, I get x is equal to 25. So remember what we found, x is equal to 25. Now, let's say instead of doing this, I swapped this minus 17 with, I put it behind 122. And before continuing, I did 122 minus 17. What I would have gotten would be 3x plus 105 minus 180. So I would subtract 105 from both sides, and I would get that 3x is equal to 75. And then I would divide both sides by 3, and I would get, again, x is equal to 25. So, even if you weren't able to do it like this, I showed you the first way, and that way is perfectly viable. Next up, we have 80 plus 8x minus 36 needs to be equal to 180. So here I'm going to do 80 minus 36 first. So I get 8x plus 44 needs to be equal to 180. Then I subtract 44 from both sides. And I get 8x needs to be equal to 136. I divide both sides by 8 and I get 17. Next up, 4x minus 30 plus 106 needs to be equal to 180. So again, same trick. I'm going to swap this. I'm going to bring this behind here. So I get 4x plus 76 needs to be equal to 180. I subtract 76 from both sides, and I get that 4x needs to be equal to 104. I divide both sides by 4, and I get x is equal to 26. Lastly, we have x plus 40 plus 52 needs to be equal to 180. 40 plus 52 makes 92. So x plus 92 needs to be equal to 180. I subtract 92 from both sides and I get that x is equal to 88. All right. There's your entire worksheet. Pause the video if you need to check or copy. Lastly, let's move on to our last worksheet. All right, so here again we are being given 2 of the 3 angles of a triangle, and we need to find the third one, given that your sum needs to be 180. So Two of the angles are 46 and 44. Together they make 90. So how much do I need to add to 90 to get to 180? I need to add another 90. 70 and 30 make 100. And how much do I need to add to 100 to get to 180? I need to add 80. Here, 58 and 50 make 108. To get from 108 to 180, I need to add 72. And if you wanted to be more detailed, you could have, for example, you could have symbolized the unknown angle as an x and said, okay, these need to be equal to 180. Their sum needs to be equal to 180. And then you could have solved this equation if you wanted to be completely precise, if you wanted to show your work, basically. So here we need to talk about what kind of triangle each of these is. And this one has a right angle. So it's going to be a right triangle, orthogonal. This one has three acute triangles, so it's going to be trigonal. And here the same applies. Again, three acute angles. Sorry. Okay, the next exercise wants us to create a trapezoid, an isosceles trapezoid, and a right trapezoid. So let's see what each of these is. Trapezoid, you know a trapezoid, you saw it, two parallel lines. Right? So there's your normal average trapezoid. An isosceles trapezoid needs to have these two sides being equal. We don't really care what's going on with the bases. But what we do need is for the sides, these two sides, we need them to be equal. And then lastly, a right trapezoid has two right angles. So let's see how that works. We would make a right angle here. Then we would continue, but this side needs to be longer than this side. And of course, one base always needs to be parallel to the other. So again, normal trapezoid, nothing special about it. Isosceles trapezoid, the two legs are basically equal. And here, a right trapezoid with one right angle and another right angle. All right, let's move on. We need to find x in each of these cases. So here, x plus 35 needs to make 180. So I would subtract 35 from, 35 from both sides, and I would get that x is equal to 145 degrees. Here you can see that this angle and this angle form a right angle, right? So I would say that x plus 30 needs to be equal to 90. So in that case, I subtract 30 from both sides and I get that x is equal to 60. Here we have that x is this angle, then this angle is right, and then all three together need to make 180 degrees. So x plus 90 plus 37 needs to be equal to 180. X plus 127 needs to be equal to 180. So x is equal to, if I subtract 127 from both sides, I get 53. Next up, these three angles added together need to be equal to 180. 56 and 56 makes 112. And this needs to be equal to 180. So I subtract 112 from both sides and I get 68. All right, up next. All right, this is a little more tricky. So here we have some angle that is unknown to us, right? But with these two angles, it needs to make 180. And then when it is added to x, it needs to make also make 180, because see, this angle in here is part of a straight angle. So with x, they create an angle, a straight angle, which is 180 degrees. So we need to figure out, let's just name this angle. Let's give it a name. We'll call it y. All right. Well, y plus 30 plus 120 will be equal to 180. If I add 30 and 120, what I get is 150. And this needs to be equal. You'll see that actually x will end up being 150 degrees. So y will be equal to, if I subtract 150 from both sides, it will be 30. So then we also know that since this is now, we found out 30, well, x plus what? X plus 30 needs to make 180. X plus 30 needs to make 180. Well, if I subtract 30 from both sides, then I get that x is equal to 150. All right. Here we have three angles that all together need to make 180 degrees. So here we could say that their sum needs to be equal to 180 degrees. So x plus 80 needs to be equal to 180. Well, x plus x makes 2x. And if I subtract 80 from both sides, I get 100. So we get that 2x needs to be equal to 100. If I divide both sides by 2, I get that x needs to be equal to 50. And there we go. That is all of it. So that is all your exercises for this week. If you need to check them, pause the video. Have a good weekend, do your homework, and see you again on Monday.